Central Europe. Canada was a refuge for tens of thousands of Chinese fleeing the horrors of the Cultural Revolution. We welcomed more than 60,000 Vietnamese refugees, the boat people, after the fall of Saigon, as already been said, including our first member of the upper house of Vietnamese descent, Senator No. We spoke out in those days against anti-Semitism in the communist world, against the expulsion of Jewish citizens, and against the horrific mass deportation of Crimean Tatars, the 70th anniversary of which we mark with sorrow and with reminders, unfortunately, this very month. Canada offered shelter to the Czech writer Joseph Skorowski, and of course to the Soviet defector Igor Guzenko, who gave the West one of the very first warnings of the dangers to come in the Cold War, and who actually lived just a few blocks south of Parliament Hill. Canada was there in 1991 as the first Western country to recognize a newly independent Ukraine. Canada is still there for the people of Ukraine. En fait, aucun pays occidental n'est plus proche de l'Ukraine que le Canada. In fact, there is no Western country that has been closer and has a closer ties to Ukraine than Canada. And you must know that we are all fiercely proud of it. Since the late 19th century, we received with open arms hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian settlers. We called the Holodomor what it was, a mass genocide by starvation. And in 2008, at the initiative of my colleague, James Bazan, who's here tonight, we passed an act of Parliament declaring the fourth Saturday of November to be Holodomor Memorial Day in this country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to return to Ukraine in just a moment, because the current situation there has serious and far-reaching implications for peoples everywhere. But before I do, let me explain why it is that Canadians vigorously promote freedom. Why so many Canadians have been willing to give their lives defending it. It's simple, really. La liberté pour tous est au cœur de ce que signifie être Canadien. Freedom for everyone is at the heart of what it means to be Canadian. Canadians have a long history of guarding our freedoms at home, and we have an equally proud history of defending freedom abroad. Another one of my predecessors, Prime Minister Sandler, who served in the early post-war years, put it well when he said, and I quote, "The vigor and liberty of our national way of life are the foundations for playing our role in the Cold War." A statement, I would add, that applies equally to virtually all of Canada's historic military engagements abroad. Now, I must pause here, however, with immense regret to note that Canada has not always lived up to these high aspirations. There have been times when we've fallen short, heeded the calls of those who preferred to see Canada sidelined, to see Canada serve as a neutral bystander instead of a principled actor, those who preached moral equivalency, and who said that Canada should learn to accept totalitarian communism as just another option. They were the people who showed blindness to the unparalleled crimes of Maoism in China, indifference in the face of the communist coup against Poland's solidarity in 1981, and who pushed the so-called peace initiative of 1984, not long before the Warsaw Pact collapsed. Friends, our government has learned from the past, and we have used these Canadian examples and experiences, both proud and shameful, to guide our present actions and shape our foreign policies. Aujourd'hui, nos politiques étrangères sont éclairées par les valeurs qui nous sont les plus chères. Le Canada défend et fait valoir les libertés fondamentales qui qui sont cruciales au maintien d'une société humaine. Et nous nous élevons contre ceux qui les menacent. Today, our foreign policies are informed by our highest values. Canada defends and promotes the basic freedoms that are crucial to maintaining human society, and we oppose those everywhere who threaten those values. Under our government, Canada has cut support for terrorist-led governments. We've condemned human rights abuses. And ladies and gentlemen, Canada proudly, resolutely, unequivocally stands with the people of Ukraine. Now, I was told, I just want to add something. I was told a couple of weeks ago that Mr. Putin made some comments. That he didn't understand why Harper in Canada cared so much about Ukraine. It's a long way away, he says. The fact that he doesn't get it tells you there's a problem. Freedom, democracy, justice, that's what it's all about. A couple of months ago, I traveled to Ukraine, as some of you know, the first G7 leader to do so. During my visit, I had the pleasure of meeting with Prime Minister Yatsenyuk and when we met, I shared with him, as I continue to share with my counterparts in the G7 and beyond, that what is happening today to the millions in Ukraine is both a wake-up call and a call to action. Over the last several months, indeed years, the world has watched as President Putin has grown more comfortable with confrontation. His boldness has increased since Russian troops first made an open grab for power in Crimea. L'impact de l'expansionnisme et du militarisme de régime Poutine s'étend au-delà de l'Ukraine. Il menace la sécurité de nos alliés en Europe de l'Est et par extension la stabilité et la sécurité du monde entier. The impact of the Putin regime's expansionism and militarism extends beyond Ukraine. It threatens the security of our Eastern European allies and, by extension, the stability and security of the world. Now, friends, I cannot predict what these next few months or years hold for Ukraine, for Europe, or for Canada. But I do know this. Canadians have always supported freedom and democracy for all people, and we will not hold back that support now from the people of Ukraine. Le Canada fera ce qu'il a toujours cherché à faire ce qui est juste. Canada will do what we have always tried to do, the right thing. Now let me just close with this. Pope, now Saint John Paul II, referred to the 20th century as a century of tears. And for countless tens of millions of people, he was right. In the course of that century, its great evils, militarism, fascism, and communism, snuffed out the lights and the lives of freedom, democracy, and justice. But just as stars shine more brightly as darkness claims the sky at night, so I believe Canada, the North Star, stood out as these shadows fell across the globe. Now those of us who have lived long enough, and I'm getting in that category, those of us who have lived long enough will know that evil comes in many forms and seems to reinvent itself time and again. But whatever it calls itself, Nazism, Marxist-Leninism, today terrorism, ils ont tous un point commun, la destruction, la fin de la liberté humaine. They all have one thing in common, the destruction, the end of human liberty. My fear is this. As we move further into the 21st century, Canadians, especially new Canadians, new generations, will forget or will not be taught the lessons hard learned and the victories hard earned over the last 100 years. That they will fall even further in love with ease and convenience, and that they will not understand that their rights and their advantages, their peace and their won by people willing to live and die for what is good and right. That they will not appreciate how precious and rare our way of life here in Canada today truly is. And that they will not recognize these grave threats when they reappear. Ce que l'histoire nous a enseigné, c'est que les idéologies politiques qui promettent l'utopie mènent à l'opposé, l'enfer sur terre. What history has taught us is one clear thing, that the political ideologies that promise utopia lead to the opposite, hell on earth. That's why Canada needs this monument, and why we are so grateful to the work of Tribute to Liberty that reminds us of the names and the stories of those lost to one of the deadliest ideological plagues ever spread, to communism. This monument is part of marking our path as a nation, and thus helping to ensure